I live in Aussieland. Even though some of you seem to be convinced I am British, I am not British. Water. Is that good enough for you? Now, Australian internet has always been the butt of many, many jokes. I remember those days when I was on 1 megabit, and it was becoming common for the US to have 100 megabit. I remember having 2.5 to 5 megabit when gigabit fiber was rolling out in a lot of places, thanks to the likes of Google, and then whatever is happening over in South Korea, whatever sort of connection you can get over there. And then there are the prices. So I think maybe, I don't know, 2012, 2013, something like that. So I was still living at home. I think my mum was paying $70 a month for a 200 gigabyte cap and 5 megabit down. And back then, it wasn't even common to advertise the speeds you would get. It would just be ADSL2, and that's just all you need to know. What's the speed? Who knows? Who cares? But in the city, the suburbs, the outer suburbs, and rural towns, those days are pretty much gone, thanks to the NBN, the National Broadband Network. Now, it has its problems. Oh, it has its problems, and any Australians are going to tell you that. Anyone who is not is probably being paid by the government. And it was a mess of a rollout. Originally, the plan was fiber to the home. Everybody gets fiber, but it being a national project, it was subject to governmental changes. The government changed, they wanted it cheaper, then it became fiber to the node, and then using existing copper going to the home. So those copper lines became a massive bottleneck. Then the government changed again. And then it's back to fiber to the home, vastly more expensive than just doing fiber from the very start. And there are still places now waiting for fiber to be rolled out to. It's pretty much good in the city and the suburbs, but rural areas are still, they're a work in progress. So nowadays I'm sitting on about 230 down by 20-ish up, advertised as 250 by 25 because we actually advertise speeds now. Imagine that. And there is the possibility to get 1000 by 50 even on a residential connection, let alone what you can get with a business connection, but that's expensive and way overkill for what I'm doing. So those days of having to wait overnight for a game to download, at least in the city, suburbs, outer suburbs, and rural towns, those days are gone. In the places outside of that, though, you're kind of stuck with fixed wireless or finding something else to do, and then you still have not the best of speeds, a lot better than they used to be, but you're subject to data caps and low speeds and all this sort of fun stuff. And due to it being a nationwide network upgrade, way back in 2015, Telstra shut off our dial-up services. Basically, they wanted to migrate everyone off of that system onto the NBN, which at the time was some cases slower than dial-up, but it got better over time. And doing a bit of a search, there does appear to maybe be some small ISPs that might still be offering a dial-up service. I don't know if these are still being offered though, because when I navigate to their websites not going through the search engine, I am not able to find any of these pages. So I don't know if these are just old pages that haven't been cleaned up yet, or there's just, for some reason, not listing on the website, but they're still actually being offered. I have no idea. However, this is just Australia, and I want to talk a bit about the United States of America. If you're from some small European country where it's very easy to run lines everywhere, everybody has fiber, even just like some remotely modern connection, this might sound crazy to you, but very recently, America Online released this statement. Yes, AOL still does exist. Yes, they are more than a web portal. And yes, they were still an active ISP, dial-up internet, to be discontinued. This came out a couple of days ago. AOL routinely evaluates its product and services and has decided to discontinue dial-up internet. This service will no longer be available in AOL plans. As a result, on September 30th, 2025, This service and the associated software, the AOL Dialer software and the AOL Shield browser, which are optimized for older operating systems and dial-up internet connections, will be discontinued. Now, I've not been able to find any proper customer numbers here, and I doubt they would publish that anyway. But considering they were offering the service for as long as they did, that being 34 years, there are very likely still customers making use of it. And I know that might sound crazy. Like, why is anyone still using dial-up in 2025? The latest data we have is the 2019 US Census, where 265,000 people were still on dial-up. Yes, 250,000 people in 2019 were still on dial-up. Since then, I hope some of them have been migrated to newer services, whether that be a 4G or 5G modem, or hopefully some sort of remotely modern line was run through that area. And I imagine some of them have probably migrated over to satellite services like Starlink and things like that. But simply the fact that AOL published a statement firstly means they were operating this service. They were still operating dial-up services, and the number was clearly higher than 0, and high enough where they couldn't just directly reach out to the individuals. Now again, if you're in some small European country, you might reasonably think, how in the world is a country like the United States of America in a situation where people are choosing to use dial-up? Now, the problem is they're not choosing to use dial-up. There are regions where dial-up is the only option, outside of obviously using satellite and stuff like that. But like an actual line, dial-up is still the only option. There are tons of these random little rural towns where 100 years ago they ran phone lines through there, and that was the last time anything like that was done. The local government or local businesses just never wanted to run DSL lines because it was just too expensive to do so for how many people were in the region, let alone anything even remotely modern like fiber. And dial-up is legitimately the only actual line service that you can get in that area. Now, AOL is a notable named service that people are going to actually recognize, but there are other companies besides AOL still offering dial-up in the United States of America right now. They were not the only one doing so, let alone the small local businesses where there's like one ISP for the town. None of the major ISPs ever wanted to do anything there. The only way to get an internet connection is going through this one tiny business that only serves that town, where everybody knows the owner goes to the local pub, and that's basically your only option. Again, unless you want to go and spend the money on a satellite service and things like that, but again, line service, that's your only option. This is the actual state of things for some people in the United States of America, not some little nation you've never heard of that's in some, like, massive war-torn place where nothing can get done, but in the United States of America. And do you want to know what makes all of this even better? So because they were offering this dial-up service, and obviously that's going to be really slow, there is software that you might want to be using with it. And AOL was still sending out AOL CDs, not in the same context as they used to be, in this case for the AOL Dialer software and the AOL Browser software, because the browser would take 3 to 4 hours to download. Now I've got no idea how well maintained this software is. I can't imagine it's very well, but this browser, the AOL Shield browser, is intended for use on things like XP and Vista. Now, they do have other pieces of software like the AOL Desktop Gold and AOL Shield Pro browser. These aren't for XP. These are for, you know, modern operating systems like Windows 7, I guess. But, yeah, get online with AOL. Whether you're on an old computer or new dial-up or broadband, we have an option for you to safely connect to the internet. at least judging by the other AOL browsers that might still kind of technically exist, it's probably just going to be a fork of some other browser, like probably a Chromium with very little actually done to it. And they're like, AOL safety, we're keeping you safe online. I really doubt that if you're connecting online with a XP or a Vista system and you don't know what you're doing, safe is the last thing you are. So now, after 34 years, we are at the end of an era for AOL as an ISP. Granted, a lot of people probably didn't even realize they were still an ISP. I can't imagine anyone watching this channel was still, and even knew anyone with a connection through them. If you did, let me know. I would like to hear why they have the connection. Now, for me, being in Australia, I just don't really have that nostalgia for AOL, and I don't even have that nostalgia for dial-up. Not because I'm that young, I'm 27, but my parents didn't know about the internet or care about the internet until about 2005, 2006. I'd use the internet at school and things like that, but for a home connection, I just didn't have anything until that point. And before that point, I wasn't even back in South Australia yet. We were actually living in the middle of nowhere, Queensland. This is an actual picture of the house I was in at the time. Actual middle of nowhere. But I do know that a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for this time, so let me know your thoughts down below. What was your experience like on the early internet? What was your experience like using AOL in those early days, getting AOL CDs, and all of that sort of jazz? I would love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video. Go subscribe as well. And if you really liked the video and you want to become one of these amazing people over here, check out the Patreon, subscribe to Liberapay, linked in the description down below. That's going to be it for me, and America is offline.
Like this.